If you thought about giving up, listen. This is the sign that heaven sent to you today. I am Michael, Prince of the heavenly hosts, and I come to you not by chance, but by decree of the Most High. Every word I deliver now carries the weight of eternity. Every sentence I speak comes charged with the anointing that breaks invisible chains. This is a critical spiritual moment, an instant that separates what was from what will be, the limited past from a future full of promises. Be still within and perceive. It was not chance that brought you here. It was the hand of God moving, guiding your steps to this exact encounter, because the time has come to hear what was hidden. I speak with the authority granted to me by the throne of the Most High. I saw when you thought you were alone, when you believed that silence was abandonment. I saw the weight that fell upon your shoulders, the tears that no one saw, the nights when sleep did not come because anxiety choked your heart. None of this went unnoticed before heaven. And now, this is the moment of revelation, when God Himself opens a rare window so that you may know He has not left you, He has not forgotten you, He has not abandoned you. What seemed like silence was preparation. What seemed like absence was repositioning. There is an ancient promise engraved in the heart of God that today finds fulfillment in your life. Scripture says that the Lord is faithful in all His promises and kind in all His works. And this faithfulness now manifests for you. The doors that were closed begin to creak. The walls that seemed insurmountable already show cracks, and the rampart that intimidated you is about to collapse before your eyes. Do not doubt what you are hearing. This is not just a word, it is a heavenly summons. I come as a messenger to tear away the veil that tried to hide from you the greatness of what is about to happen. The time of God is moving, and every second now carries the weight of a revelation. Do not waste this instant. Do not allow the noise of the world to muffle the voice that speaks directly to your spirit. You asked for a sign, and this is the sign. You asked for confirmation, and this is the confirmation. You asked for strength to go on, and here I am, sent to say, heaven is in motion, and nothing will be able to stop what has been released over your life. Look within yourself, for even when discouragement was shouting, there was a flame that never went out. That flame was preserved by the Spirit of God, and now it will become living fire. You are not in a dead end, but at a divine crossroads. The path that seemed narrow will open before you as the sea before the people of Israel. The desert that seemed endless will turn into a fertile pathway. You will see water spring from where there was only dry rock. You will see life blossom where there were only ashes. Calm your mind, because I am here speaking to you now. I do not bring illusions, I bring decrees. I do not come with human advice, I come with orders from heaven. What seemed buried will be resurrected. What seemed forgotten will be remembered. What seemed lost will be returned twofold. Today, the turnaround you were waiting for begins. The time of mourning is coming to an end, and a new season is being announced over your life. I speak directly to your heart. Do not ignore this moment. Do not treat it as just another message. This is a heavenly warning, an urgent call. There are only spiritual minutes left for God's clock to move the hands of your story. If you listen and receive, you will see the transformation. If you despise it, you may lose what heaven has already put in motion. I do not say this to frighten, but to awaken. Time is precious, and today is the day of the answer. You thought you were forgotten, but I tell you, your name still echoes before the throne. The prayers you believed were lost were gathered into bowls, and every tear was recorded. Nothing was lost. The silence was only the ground where the promise was germinating. Now the time of harvest has come. The Lord calls you to rise, because what will come will not be small, will not be common, will not be fleeting. It will be extraordinary, visible, and undeniable. I, Michael, with my sword drawn, come to fight for you. I come to open a way in the midst of the spiritual battle. I come to announce that heaven's decree is favorable. Do not fear the shadows, for greater is the light that surrounds you now. Do not fear hidden enemies, for they have already been exposed and defeated by the word of the Most High. You are entering new territory, not by your strength, but by the authority of the one who chose you. Here is what you must keep. God does not fail. The promise does not expire. The plan has not been cancelled. Today, heaven calls you to believe again, to hope again, to rise again, because what is before you is not the end, but the beginning of a new story written with the seal of victory. He knows of the nights when the pillow held tears that no one else saw. He knows the weight that settled in the chest when everything seemed lost. The silence that so many called abandonment was not forgetfulness, but positioning. It was like the field that, when facing the rigor of winter, prepares itself in secret for the beauty of spring. In the same way, the life of the one who listens went through seasons in which nothing seemed to blossom, but every second served as invisible preparation. No moment was in vain, no pain was useless, no cry went unheard. The tears that flowed without witnesses were gathered before the throne. The heart that seemed too tight to resist was sustained by hands that never fail, and every battle fought in hiding, every struggle won in silence, was recorded as seed before God. What looked like defeat was only the ground being prepared for a deeper planting, because there is no spring without winter, no harvest without waiting. What many interpreted as failure, heaven always saw as process. Whoever looks at the bare soil does not see the seed sprouting, but the Creator knows what is happening beneath the earth. So it happened with you. What seemed unproductive was only the hidden cycle of the promise forming. The wait was not neglect, but care. The silence was not absence, but strategy. Because at the right time, life sprouts, the harvest arrives, and the fruit ripens. The pains that weighed on your shoulders were not ignored. They became part of a testimony that now begins to take shape. The desert that seemed endless was not a scene of death, but a school of endurance. The valley that seemed suffocating was not a tomb, but a place of encounter. There are marks that still hurt, but these marks are proof that you crossed. If the fire did not consume you, it was because there was a purpose greater than the flames. If the waters did not drown you, it was because a firm hand kept your head lifted. Just as gold is tested in the fire to become purer, so also your life passed through the furnace of affliction, not to destroy but to reveal the shine that only appears after the trial. The Archangel Michael, sent as a messenger of the Most High, saw when the flame seemed uncontrollable, but also beheld the moment when grace covered every spark. Nothing escaped the sight of heaven. Every detail, every tear, every hidden thought was noticed, and when strength no longer responded, when the mind screamed that it was the end, sustenance came from where you least expected. It was the forgotten prayer that rose as a shield. It was the hymn, whispered in a weak voice, that served as an invisible sword. It was the silent presence of God Himself, who sat by the bed and did not allow the emptiness to be greater than the hope. That presence never left, even when the mind tried to believe otherwise. History shows that the greatest miracles were born from unlikely scenarios. The sea opened when the people were cornered, not before. Water flowed from the rock when the thirst was unbearable, not before. Manna fell from heaven when there was no resource at all, not before. So it is with you. It was in the moment when the pain seemed unbearable that provision began to move. It was when the darkness seemed total that the light began to be born. Life may have seemed barren, like arid soil that produces nothing, but even the driest land can bloom when it receives the rain of heaven. And that rain is coming. The seeds you thought had died are alive, preserved for the right moment. There is a time for everything, and the time to blossom is approaching. The Archangel Michael was a witness of this invisible preparation, and now announces that nothing was lost because heaven does not waste pain. The moments when you felt forgotten were, in truth, moments when heaven was working behind the scenes. While you thought you were standing still, God was adjusting the gears. While you believed nothing was changing, the purpose was being woven. While you cried in silence, the angels were moving to align the invisible. It was not abandonment, it was care. It was not neglect, it was love. The journey up to here has not been easy, but every step became testimony. The weight you carried will be transformed into authority to lift others. The pains you endured will become signs that it is possible to overcome. Nothing was lost. Everything was written on pages that now begin to be read aloud by heaven itself. And as you look back, you will understand that even what seemed like defeat was part of a greater victory. It is no coincidence that you are hearing these words now. It is answer. It is proof that the process was not in vain. It is confirmation that heaven was always attentive. The season changes, and what seemed like an end is revealed as a beginning. What seemed like silence is revealed as response. What seemed like emptiness is revealed as fullness. What seemed like winter is revealed as the sign of spring. How long will you hesitate between believing and giving up? How many times will you still let doubt steal the space of the promise? Why do you keep looking at what is visible as if it were the final measure of reality, when it has already been declared that victory is assured? What is before you is not coincidence, it is decree. It is not luck, it is promise. It is not chance, it is purpose. Doubt cannot occupy the place of faith, because the one who promised has already set the exact time. And that time is now. How many times has the heart been taken by uncertainty, as if the words of heaven were too fragile to bear the weight of hope? How many times has the mind shouted that it was no longer worth trying? How many times has the voice of fear seemed louder than the voice of God? But here is the truth. Every hesitation is a delay. Every wavering makes room for confusion. Therefore, today the call is firm, direct, urgent. Do not allow yourself to keep oscillating between faith and unbelief. There will be moments when the ground trembles under your feet and darkness seems to suffocate your sight. In those moments, the temptation of doubt rises as an illusory refuge. But doubt never protects, it only paralyzes. Doubt never comforts, only corrodes. Doubt never points the way, it only raises walls. Therefore, you cannot continue to feed what weakens the spirit. What has been released from heaven requires a clear posture. Either you believe and advance, or you hesitate and lose what was about to blossom. The Archangel Michael, witness of the eternal throne, did not come only to bring comfort, but also warning. The danger of hesitation is real, because every minute of doubt is a minute in which the door of the promise remains ajar, vulnerable to the wind of disbelief. What heaven has released cannot be treated with indifference. Faith must occupy the whole space. It must rise like a wall that prevents uncertainty from stealing the harvest prepared. And how long will you believe that you are not worthy of the promise? How long will you cling to the weight of the past, as if mistakes and falls were greater than the mercy of God? Hesitation does not come from truth, but from deception. And deception only finds place when the mind is allowed to silence the voice of the promise. But he who declared victory does not go back. He who promised does not fail. He who set the time fulfills with exactness. The time is not tomorrow, it is now. There is a boundary that cannot be ignored. The line between waiting in faith and delaying out of doubt. While you believe, there is advance, even if slow. But when you hesitate, the path becomes regression. Therefore, the call is urgent. Choose faith, choose trust, choose to believe. The sea did not open before Moses while the people hesitated. It opened when the step was taken. The walls of Jericho did not fall while the people calculated the difficulties. They fell when obedience was complete. The impossible does not move before doubt, but before faith. And how many proofs are still necessary to believe that God does not fail? How many signs still need to align so that you perceive that the hand of heaven has always been present? How many times will it be necessary to fall to finally rise with conviction? The warning is not to condemn, but to awaken. The time of indecision is over. The time of waiting is over. The time of faith is today. The heavenly messenger raises his voice not only as comfort, but as a trumpet of alert. You cannot play with the present moment. The spiritual clock does not delay, nor does it repeat itself. What has been prepared must be received now. Those who continue to hesitate run the risk of losing the opportunity that will not repeat itself in the same way. And heaven does not desire that anyone be left behind, but that all advance toward what has already been released. How long will you let fear be Lord? How long will you allow insecurity to dictate the next steps? Faith does not need visible guarantees because it is itself the guarantee. Faith does not need logical explanations because it is greater than logic. Faith does not depend on favorable circumstances because it creates the circumstance. Those who choose to believe are not bound to what they see, but to what was promised. And what was promised is certainty before the eternal throne. Do not allow the heart to remain divided. Those who look back lose what is ahead. Those who hesitate halfway lose the arrival. Those who choose to live in doubt never experience the fullness of the promise. It is time to align mind, heart, and spirit with the heavenly decree. It is time to say, I believe, I advance, I receive. And if the voice of doubt tries to rise again, remember, the decree has already been signed in heaven. The time has already been set. The word has already been released. The future has already been prepared. There is no room to waver when God Himself has declared that victory is yours. The call is urgent, and the response must be immediate. The Archangel Michael brings the reminder that no hesitation is too small to be ignored, because every seed of doubt, if watered, grows like a tree that suffocates faith. But today is the time to pull out those roots, to silence those voices, to lift the heart as an altar, and declare that there will be no more room for disbelief. Thus the warning becomes an invitation. Choose to believe without reservations. Choose to trust without conditions. Choose to remain without wavering, because what is before you is not chance, it is decree. And when heaven decrees, no force can prevent it. The time is not distant. The time is not future. The time is today. The turnaround that has been long awaited begins to manifest now. First, in the innermost being, in the heart that seemed weary, in the spirit that so often bent under the weight of battles. Transformation does not begin outside, but within, like a hidden seed breaking through the soil in silence. This inner change will become the strength that sustains all others. What seemed small, almost imperceptible, will be the beginning of something that will echo in waves much greater than the mind can imagine. Then this same promise extends to the family. The home that seemed unsettled will receive alignment. Relationships marked by distance will be touched by reconciliation. Conversations that had been broken will be restored through words of forgiveness. Where there was division, unity will arise. Where there was fear, peace will come forth. What seemed impossible to repair will be adjusted by the invisible hand of God. The home will become shelter, a table of communion, a source of hope. And it does not end there. That which is born in the heart and reaches the family spreads to all those who walk nearby. Friends, companions on the journey, people who witnessed the struggles and silences will begin to notice something different. The light that seemed dimmed will return to the eyes. The faith that seemed suffocated will bloom into new attitudes, and those who walked weary will find encouragement when they see the impossible becoming reality. The testimony of a transformed life will become a bridge for others to also find a path of hope. The impact of these promises, however, is not limited to the present. They extend beyond the now, reaching generations yet to be born. What is being released is not just for a passing moment, but for an eternal inheritance. Every choice of faith made today will become a root that will sustain fruits tomorrow. Children, grandchildren, and even those who cannot yet be seen in this time will harvest from the fruits already being planted. The legacy will not be of fear or defeat, but of victory and hope. Just as the wave of the sea begins small and expands until it reaches distant shores, so too will the promise that now begins. What seems discreet today will gain strength and breadth until it touches places you cannot even imagine. The reach will be so great that it cannot be explained by human logic, only recognized as the work of heaven. The Archangel Michael was sent to witness and declare that these promises are real, not empty words. He knows that the harvest is not limited to the individual, but overflows like a river that cannot be contained. The river that begins at one point spreads, watering dry lands and transforming deserts into gardens. So it will be with each promise released. It will begin at one point and reach entire territories. The blessings will have no limits. There will be financial restoration because debts will not have the final word. There will be healing in bodies because sickness will not be eternal. There will be liberation in minds because oppression will not prevail. There will be peace in the heart because anxiety will not be lord of the future. What seemed unattainable will be placed in the hands of those who believed. What seemed distant will be brought near by the movement of heaven. These escalated promises will come like successive waves. First, a small tide that renews strength, then a stronger current that restores forgotten areas. Finally, a tsunami of grace that will reach everything around. Nothing will remain untouched. No area of life will be forgotten. What began as a personal answer will become a collective testimony. Each promise will be living proof that divine faithfulness is not limited to the present. It crosses generations, remains firm when time passes, and renews itself in every season. What is being planted today will not die with this generation, but will continue bearing fruit in those yet to come. There will be children who will grow up under the shadow of trees watered by today's tears. There will be families who will live in peace because someone chose to believe now. There will be stories told that will remember this time as the turning point. And even those who mocked, who disbelieved, who looked with indifference, will be forced to recognize that the hand of God was at work. Because what is promised by heaven cannot be hidden. When it is fulfilled, it is like the sun rising. All see it, none can deny it. The second mention of the Archangel Michael reinforces every stage is necessary, every step is part of the ladder of the promise. One cannot desire the top without climbing the first steps. One cannot inherit the fullness without embracing the beginning. That is why every small sign must be valued, every discreet change must be valued, for it is in the detail that faithfulness is revealed. What seems small today will grow. What seems fragile today will be strengthened. What seems distant today will be brought near. The promise does not follow human logic, but the divine calendar. And that calendar already marks a new season. The time of change has come, and nothing will be as it was before. The decree of heaven is clear. There will be advancement, there will be restoration, there will be multiplication. What began within you will reach your family. What reached your family will spread to those around. What touched those around will extend to future generations. Thus the cycle of the promise is fulfilled in waves that do not cease, in blessings that have no limits, in testimonies that do not fade. Declare out loud, I receive. Because every prophetic word requires a response. Heaven does not move upon the silence of indifference, but upon the voice of faith that agrees with what has been released. While the mouth proclaims, the spirit aligns. While the declaration is made, the walls begin to tremble. While faith is expressed aloud, the angels move to align opportunities, healings, and restorations. It is not enough to listen as one who passes before a distant echo. It is necessary to become involved as one who actively participates in a revelation. The promise is not dead letter, but living seed. Make it real within yourself now. Every word from heaven carries creative power, but it is up to the human heart to embrace that power. When one says, I receive, the invisible becomes tangible, the distant comes near, the impossible becomes possible. It is like opening the door of a dark room and allowing the light to invade every corner. Faith is that door, and the declaration is the key that opens it. Do not hold back the word on your lips. Do not hide what must be proclaimed. What is declared in faith within the heart becomes decree before the throne. Life is not transformed only by what is heard, but by what is answered. That is why the invitation is for faith to be active, not only as an idea, but as action. Lifting the eyes when everything seems heavy is already an act of faith. Continuing to walk when the feet ache is proof of faith. Declaring life in the valley of death is the exercise of faith. Heaven moves in response to these simple yet powerful gestures. Declarations of faith are like banners raised in the midst of battle. They announce to the enemy that there will be no surrender. They proclaim to the spiritual realm that the heart has chosen to trust. They echo before the throne like pleasing incense. Every time the heart says, I believe, a wall collapses. Every time the lips say, I receive, an angel moves toward the fulfillment of the promise. Every time the mind repeats, I will not give up, the enemy loses ground. And when doubt tries to return, the response must be immediate. I receive. Because doubt is like wind that tries to extinguish the flame, but the declaration of faith is like breath that rekindles the fire. Archangel Michael, messenger of divine faithfulness, knows that it is not enough to hear the order from heaven. It is necessary to agree with it. It is necessary to rise in response. He himself moves in obedience to the decree of the Most High, and now invites every heart to do the same. Respond with firm voice, with unshakable posture, with total surrender. It does not matter if the circumstances have not yet changed. Faith does not wait for the scene to change to declare. Faith declares so that the scene will change. It does not matter if the signs still seem weak. Faith does not depend on the vision of the eyes, but on the conviction of the Spirit. What is declared now in confidence will be seen later in reality. What is proclaimed today with tears will be celebrated tomorrow with joy. Words have power. When used with faith, they create paths where there was no road, open rivers in deserts, plant gardens in barren ground. That is why every declaration is a seed sown into the soil of the future. And every seed that falls on the ground of trust germinates at the right time. What is planted today with declarations will be harvested as abundant fruit. Do not waste the opportunity to plant. Do not allow silence to kill what could flourish. Say out loud, "I receive healing," and the body begins to align with the decree of life. Say out loud, "I receive restoration," and broken relationships begin to be touched by the balm of reconciliation. Say out loud, "I receive provision," and doors once closed begin to move toward abundance. Say out loud, "I receive peace," and the anxiety that stole sleep begins to lose strength before the serenity that only God can give. Heaven responds to these declarations because they are echoes of the very promise. They are not loose wishes, but agreement with what has already been decreed. And by agreeing, the human spirit becomes a partner of the divine purpose. What was held back is unlocked. What was blocked opens. What was distant comes near. Archangel Michael reminds that victory lies not only in waiting, but in declaring. The silence of apathy does not generate movement, but the voice of faith generates transformation. The invitation is clear: declare, proclaim, receive. Do not wait for others to do it for you, because the promise is personal. What has been released from heaven has your name. What was written in eternity has your identity. Therefore, take your place, lift your voice, and make alive the word that was given to you. This is the time to align heart and mouth. This is the time to declare what you believe, even if it is not yet seen. This is the time to actively participate in the fulfillment of the promises, because every declaration not only affirms faith but shapes the future. What you proclaim in faith today will be witnessed in victory tomorrow. Thus the call remains: declare, become involved, receive. Do not leave the promise asleep in words heard. Transform it into reality with words spoken, because heaven is attentive, the angels are in motion, and the harvest is already on its way. The secrets that were hidden are being revealed. What once seemed impenetrable now begins to show itself with clarity. Hidden traps, prepared in the silence of the shadows, are being unmasked before the light of the eternal throne. Intentions that were invisible, thoughts that were concealed, and plans that were drawn in the darkness are beginning to be exposed. Discernment is a precious gift, and today this gift is being released as a key so that you will not be deceived. It is as if veils were being torn before spiritual eyes, allowing one to see beyond appearances. People who once seemed trustworthy will be revealed in their true essence. Paths that looked safe will show the dangers they hid. Invitations that seemed harmless will reveal disguised intentions. Nothing will remain covered before the light that now manifests. This light does not come to accuse, but to protect, to lead, to guard from stumbles that could be costly. The voice of God has always spoken in whispers in the heart, but many times it was muffled by the noise of external pressures. Now, discernment will become like a trumpet within you, impossible to ignore. There will be sudden clarity in decisions that seemed confusing. There will be sharpened perception in situations that once went unnoticed. There will be firm direction in choices that seemed surrounded by uncertainty. What was murky will become clear, like water that was once muddy and now runs crystal clear. This discernment is a weapon and a shield. It is a weapon because it disarms the enemy before he can act. It is a shield because it protects from blows that were not seen. When deception approaches, the voice of discernment sounds like an alarm. When the lie tries to settle in, spiritual perception points to the truth. When the enemy tries to plant seeds of doubt, discernment reveals the poison hidden within. Nothing will pass unnoticed by the heart that opens itself to this gift. And it is not only about people or external situations. Discernment also exposes one's own thoughts. Ideas that seemed harmless will be identified as seeds of fear. Desires that seemed right will show their root of pride. Emotions that seem justified will reveal hidden intentions. This gift from heaven not only protects against what is outside, but also illuminates what is inside. The light is not selective. It illuminates everything, and by illuminating, it transforms. Just as a lighthouse guides sailors in the midst of a storm, discernment will be a guide in times of darkness. When the sea of decision seems rough, the light will point out the safe way. When the waves of circumstances threaten to drown hope, the inner voice will remind that there is direction. When fear tries to disguise itself as prudence, discernment will show the difference between care and cowardice. Archangel Michael was appointed not only to fight in heavenly battles, but also to announce that this time of revelation has arrived. He himself knows the strategies of the enemy, for he has faced him in spiritual wars. And now he declares that the same clarity that sustains him in battle is the clarity being released over those who believe. The invisible war becomes visible so that no one walks in ignorance. The exposure of what is hidden can hurt because it shows truths that one did not want to see. It can reveal masks of those who are close. It can show intentions hidden in seemingly kind gestures. It can bring to light paths that looked straight but lead to perdition. However, even when revelation is painful, it is liberating, because it is only possible to walk in safety when the truth is seen. Deception is prison, but truth is freedom. And along with this revelation comes the opportunity to choose. Discernment not only shows but also invites. It shows the lie and invites you to reject it. It shows the deception and invites you to abandon it. It shows the error and invites you to repentance. The light does not expose to condemn, but to transform. Each exposure is a chance to align the heart with the will of heaven. Those who walk in discernment do not walk alone. They walk guarded. They walk protected. They walk in the certainty that nothing happens without the attentive gaze of God. They walk confident that every step will be guided by the voice that whispers in the heart. They walk convinced that no trap will succeed against them. For the one who walks in the light will never be overcome by darkness. Archangel Michael reaffirms, the time of shadows is over. The time of deceptions has come to an end. What was hidden will be revealed. What was disguised will be unmasked. What was concealed will be exposed to the light. And this exposure will not come to cause fear, but to generate confidence. Because now it is known that truth rules, that light has won, that discernment protects. Thus the walk becomes steadier. The future is no longer feared because every step will be illuminated. Choices are no longer doubted because each decision will be guided. One no longer walks in circles because direction will be clear. Discernment opens a way where before there was only confusion, and whoever opens up to receive it will never again be deceived in the same way. The shadows will have no power over those who have received this gift. Lies will not find fertile soil. Traps will have no effect, because the heart that walks in discernment is guarded by the very light of God, and that light is stronger than any darkness. What was taken will be returned in double. What seemed lost was not forgotten before the throne, but kept to be restored in multiplied portion. What seemed like delay was not delay, but invisible acceleration moving in dimensions that human eyes could not perceive. The time of waiting is transformed into a time of advancement. What dragged slowly will now be pushed by the force of the divine breath. God not only gives back what was taken, He enlarges, He multiplies, He surprises. The ground that once trembled under the feet, bringing insecurity and fear, now becomes firm as a stage of honor. The same territory where there was humiliation will become a place of elevation. The same space where tears fell will become a place of testimony. The same place where shame appeared will be a place of celebration. Restitution is not simple return, but total transformation of reality. What seemed like dust will become a crown. What seemed like ashes will become beauty. What seemed like the end will become a glorious beginning. The time of restitution has come. And it is not only about giving back what was taken, but about accelerating what seemed to be stuck. The years of pain will not be wasted, for every tear shed will turn into seeds of abundant harvest. The sleepless nights will turn into mornings of peace. The days of lack will turn into seasons of plenty. The emptiness will turn into fullness. Nothing will be left out of this move because the acceleration is comprehensive and the restitution is complete. There is an invisible force now acting in favor of those who believed, even when everything seemed contrary. This force breaks barriers, opens paths, and disarms resistance. What was stuck for months will be released in days. What seemed distant for years will draw near in moments. Human time does not govern over divine time because the clock of heaven is perfect. When the moment arrives, nothing can stop it, and that moment has arrived. Those who were ridiculed will see laughter return in double. Those who were wounded will see healing manifest so fully that the scar will become testimony of victory. Those who lost will see such abundant restitution that there will be no way to deny that it was the hand of heaven. What seemed impossible will become reality before their eyes, and no one will be able to give any other explanation but the faithfulness of God. Archangel Michael announces that this is the time when the justice of heaven is manifested. The enemy tried to steal, tried to delay, tried to silence, but could not annul what was already decreed. Now, what was withheld is released with urgency. What was closed is flung wide open. What was bound is loosed. The chains fall, the doors open, the walls collapse, because the time of restitution is not a future promise, it is present reality. And this reality does not come in limited form, but abundant. Those who expected little will see much. Those who awaited crumbs will receive banquets. Those who became accustomed to the minimum will be surprised by the maximum, because the measure used by heaven is not of lack, but of overflow. The acceleration not only gives back what was lost, but adds what was never even dreamed of. It is more than was asked, more than was imagined, more than was expected. It is like the farmer who sowed in tears, thinking he would not see the fruit. When he least expects it, the land is covered with abundant harvest. It is like the weary traveler who walked in the barren desert, believing he would not find water, until suddenly springs gush forth before him. So also will be the experience of those who receive this word. What seemed insufficient will become abundance. What seemed dry will become fertile. What seemed slow will become swift. The acceleration of heaven does not follow human logic. It surpasses calendars, undoes forecasts, and surprises expectations. What would take years to happen will be fulfilled in months. What seemed distant for decades will manifest in little time, because when God decides to accelerate, nothing can stop it. When He opens a way, no one can close it. When He lifts up, no one can bring down. Archangel Michael reaffirms that the stage of humiliation will be the stage of honor. The same scenario of pain will become a scenario of testimony. The same valley of tears will become a garden of joy. Nothing was forgotten, no detail went unnoticed. Every loss will be answered with multiplication. Every delay will be answered with advancement. Every blow will be answered with victory. Now it is time to lift up the eyes and see what is before you. Do not look to the past as if it had power to determine the future. What has been no longer governs what will be. Yesterday cannot hold tomorrow. The past cannot imprison the present. Because heaven has decreed restitution, and when heaven decrees, no force on earth can stop it. This is the climax of the process. It is the peak of the promise. It is the moment when everything fits together. What once seemed meaningless now gains purpose. What once seemed fragmented now becomes whole. What once seemed lost now becomes gain. What once seemed delayed now becomes acceleration. What once seemed defeat now becomes victory. Thus, the voice of heaven echoes, "Prepare yourself, because restitution has already begun. Prepare yourself, because acceleration is already in motion. Prepare yourself, because the stage of honor has already been prepared. Nothing can stop what has been released. What was taken from you will be returned in double, and what seemed delayed will become immeasurable advancement. This is the time of restitution and acceleration, and it is already before you. Receive this word as a seal in your spirit. It is not the end, it is the beginning. A new season has already been decreed, and every step taken from this moment on is sustained by the favor, the grace, and the clarity of the Most High. The one who promised does not go back, and now places before you a path that cannot be interrupted. It does not matter what has been lived. It does not matter what was lost. It does not matter what was wept. What is before you is greater than the pains of the past, because it carries the mark of eternity. While the message ends, heaven continues to move. The decrees released do not cease with words. They remain active, acting, transforming, generating invisible fruits that will soon become visible. Each sentence released continues echoing in the spiritual realm as an order of victory. What seemed dormant begins to awaken. What seemed distant begins to draw near. What seemed impossible begins to become tangible. This is the seal of a new stage, a seal that declares that the previous cycle has closed, a seal that affirms that the season of mourning has ended, a seal that guarantees that there will be no return to the starting point. The path will not be turned back because the march is advancing. The seal was placed not by human hands, but by God Himself, and when He seals, no one can open. When He determines, no one can revoke. The words are not only comfort, but also sending. The call now is to walk with confidence, to advance without looking back, to sustain faith even when the eyes do not see. The sending is not to walk alone, but to follow accompanied by the presence that never abandons. Heaven does not release a word without sending with it the resources for it to be fulfilled. The sending comes loaded with protection, with provision, with direction. The sending comes accompanied by angels who open the way. The Archangel Michael confirms that the field is already guarded. The territory that seemed vulnerable is now surrounded by invisible walls of fire. No hidden arrow will succeed because the seal of the Most High protects every step. No contrary word will have power because eternal truth prevails over every lie. No obstacle will be definitive because every stone thrown will become a step. To receive this sending is to assume that the past no longer has power. It is to accept that the future will be greater than the present. It is to trust that the process has already begun, even when all the details cannot be seen. The sending is an act of faith, to take the first step in the direction of the promise, knowing that the ground will be firm, even when the path is not fully visible. And it is not only about walking, but walking with purpose. The seal and the sending declare that every life has a destiny prepared by heaven. There is no emptiness. There is no chance. There is no waste. The purpose is real, and the mission is non-transferable. What has been entrusted to you, no one else can fulfill. What has been written in your story, no one else can erase. The second announcement of the Archangel Michael is that this sending also carries a mystery. Heaven does not reveal everything at once, it shows only the portion necessary for each step. This keeps the heart dependent, the ears attentive, and faith alive. The mystery is not absence of answer, but invitation to walk in trust. The revelation will come in layers, and each new layer will be greater than the previous. It is at this point that the divine cliffhanger arises. What comes after will be greater than what you dared to ask. What heaven has prepared cannot be measured by human expectations. What is before you does not fit in limited dreams. What is approaching is so grand that it defies logic, breaks patterns, and surprises even the most unbelieving. Tomorrow will not be common, it will be extraordinary. The future will not only be different, it will be glorious. The seal has been placed, the sending has been released, and now the call is to remain attentive. Heaven has not ceased to act. Even after the end of this message, the movements continue. The angels remain in operation. The Spirit continues to breathe life. The Word continues to generate transformation. Nothing is stopped, everything is in motion. The invisible works in favor of those who believe, and soon the visible will show the fullness of what has been promised. Thus the heart can rest, not in the sense of inertia, but of trust. Rest knowing that the struggle already has an outcome. Rest knowing that the victory has already been decreed. Rest knowing that the story is still being written, and the next chapter will be greater than all the previous ones. It is not the end, it is only the beginning. It is not the limit, it is the launch. It is not the last page, but the introduction of a new book. The final seal confirms you will not be the same after this encounter. The sending guarantees you will not walk alone. The divine cliffhanger promises what is to come will be greater than the mind dared to imagine. The word ends, but the movement of heaven continues. The promise has been declared, and the harvest has already begun.